Joining me now on the latest edition of the Knicks Film School pregame pod, with the Knicks headed down to the ATL to take on the rival Atlanta Hawks. It made sense to get one of the legendary voices of the Atlanta Hawks to help me talk about this team. And while they are below the Knicks in the standings, that might not be for much longer the way they are playing lately. The legendary voice of 38 seasons in Atlanta, it's Mr. Steve Holman. Steve, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure as always. I always like to be with you guys.
I appreciate that. And yes. Listen, as somebody who obviously has to acknowledge that this has become a rivalry the past couple of years, although
you're right, Andrew. Yes.
The attention does seem to be more about solely when Trey plays at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm intrigued by this matchup of two teams that are lower in, or I guess closer to the middle of the Eastern Conference. But
yeah, well, there are so many teams right now that are battling for that number 6 spot.
Yep.
I mean, you could say pretty much the top 5 are pretty much locked in, although Cleveland's had some trouble recently. But it's basically all the teams that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 are basically battling for that number 6 spot. I mean, you get in the play-ins if you're 7, 8, 9, 10, but nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to be in the number 6 spot.
Yeah, no Knicks or Hawks fan probably wants to hear it, but if whoever misses out on that 6 spot will probably just create a very fun and entertaining playing game for, the rest of the NBA that doesn't have to sweat out the single elimination game.
We had to do it last year, and it was basically 2 game 7s is what it amounted to. The Hawks had to play against Cleveland in Cleveland to advance into that number 6 spot. The game before that, they played Charlotte and won that one. But it's pretty grueling to have to be in that situation. And that's why they want to try to avoid that again, because by the time they made it into the number 6 spot and had to play Miami, they didn't have a whole lot left in the tank, and lost in 5 games in that series. So it's very important to try to get into that top 6. And, I think everybody wants to be playing their best basketball now or in the second half of the season. And the Hawks certainly have played. They're playing their best right now that they've played all season. It's starting to all come together the way they thought it would with Trey and DeJounte Murray playing together in the backcourt. They've had 3 straight terrific games. They've won 4 in a row now and really playing well. And that game last night that they played in Dallas was outstanding. Trey had 12 assists in that game, didn't have his highest scoring game. DeJounte had most of the points, but I thought, and I told Trey on the postgame show afterwards that, I thought he played his best game of the year last night. And it didn't have to be a 40-point game or, he just controlled it. He ran the offense and he was a true point guard last night and it worked out nicely.
So is that what you would attribute most to this turnaround over the past couple of games? That it's just that they're finally getting used to playing together? Is there a health? They're finally healthy?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, the Hawks have had a lot of, injury problems. Bogi Bogdanovic missed the first 20 games or so of the season. Clint Capella has been in and out of the lineup. He just got back in. He's had a calf injury. But everybody goes through it. It's the NBA. It's the way it is. But this is the first time that they've been totally healthy, the full roster. And I think there's only been 4 games all season where they've had the full roster healthy, and these last 4 have been them. So, it's kind of going well right now. The young center Onyeka Okongwu, who was the number 6 pick several years ago, had to start a lot of games because Clint Capella was out, and it's been worked out nicely because he's got some great experience. He's really played well, and the Hawks rookie AJ Griffin has really come on strong, and he's just a terrific kid. And his dad played, Adrian, who's a coach with the Toronto Raptors. And he's been around the game for a long time. And he gets out there. He's 19. He's not going to be 20 until August. And he doesn't play like a 19-year-old. I mean, he really is pretty savvy out there.
Well, so let's start with Trey, and then we'll eventually make our way to DeJounte. Although this conversation that I want to start with is kind of both of them combined. And it's the All-Star conversation. And I wonder how Hawks fans feel. We, of course, in New York have Jalen Brunson, who's been in the conversation, and right. Julius Randle lately, who, especially the month of December, who has really made it at least part of the conversation that he should be considered to go there. Right. Are Hawks fans just as passionate that despite how the season has gone, these two guys should absolutely be All-Stars this year.
Well, I think the fans here are voting for both of them, and I think that they both deserve it. But you give up a little bit to be playing together the way they are. Both of them have been All-Stars. Both were All-Stars last year, but you give a little, take a little to get the two of them together, and I think they've sacrificed. Both of them have a little bit of their game to the point maybe where they won't make the All-Star team. I think Trey is the new numbers just came out. I think Trey is 5th right now in the guards or whatever. But it's up to the coaches, I think, at this point now, because the fan vote, you know how that is. It's kind of a popularity contest, and Luka's going to get all those votes anyway, whether anybody's seen him play or not. All year, because they watch ESPN and that's all they hear about is Luka Doncic, and nobody else exists. So. But that's the way it is. But I don't think they really, it's not that they don't care. They'd like to be on the All-Star team, certainly. But I think that they really feel as though to be able to sacrifice a little bit of that to be winning and turn it around in the second half of the season and make some noise in the playoffs would be more important to both of them.
Yeah, we're doing a Patreon pod tomorrow that we're going to predict our All-Star teams and pick both of them. And I've been impressed with how better they've played lately. There were some efficiency issues, but of course I'm outside looking in, so I can't, with the benefit of seeing every minute that they've played.
Well, they just went 3.5. They went 3.5 full games without trailing in a game. They had the lead through
wire to wire. Wow.
Yeah, wire to wire in 3 straight games. So it's been working lately, and now that, like I say, everybody's healthy, it's been very good. So it's going to be interesting when the two teams play. But Robinson's out for a while when he broke his thumb last night.
Yeah,
right?
fractured a bone in his thumb. He was he was been an offensive rebound machine lately.
Oh yeah, that's been one of the things the Hawks have had some trouble with, is offensive rebounds for the other teams. But with Clint Capella back, that helps. But Mitchell Robinson, he's been really good against us all the time. So that's kind of a big blow, I think, for you guys.
It is, and we're reacting as if it is a big blow here in New York. And it's funny, the Knicks have had the benefit of not having too many major injuries. Now, Jalen Brunson did miss like a couple games with a bad hip. RJ Barrett had this very weird laceration of his finger where he went to try to steal the ball from Luka. He caught Luka's fingernail and it severed a tendon in his finger. So it was, other than that, they've had some pretty good injury luck.
I guess Luka needs to go get a manicure, maybe.
Listen, we called him Wolverine after that we couldn't understand how something as simple as that is what had RJ Barrett out for a couple of weeks. But I digress. Quick aside from the Knicks Hawks preview, the Luka Trey dynamic in Atlanta, I'm curious by it. Trey, I heard an interview with Quavo once of Migos that
he's a regular at our games.
Yeah,
Quavo's always here.
He said that Trey needed to come to Atlanta because he would have. I don't know if Luka would have matched well for the city, and that's always stood out to me. That maybe Luka is the better player, but Trey's better for Atlanta. Is there a rivalry still from the Hawks fans' perspective that is in defense of Trey?
I mean, if you look at Twitter, I mean, it's very passionate among the fans. I mean, there's the Luka people, not just in Atlanta, but I mean, everybody. There's the Luka camp, there's a Trey camp, and they both want to just basically pee on each other all the time on Twitter and everything.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that Luka and Trey are buddies. I mean, they're really they're close. I mean, they're good friends. They were hugging last night. You saw them there. They were laughing a few times at different things. So they look at it that way. But as far as the trade itself, the Hawks got Cam Reddish in that deal at number 10, and it looked like that was going to be a real winning deal for them. And now Cam, I guess he's not. Thibodeau's not letting him off the bench, right? Is that the?
So it's funny. He got a good start to the season because Quentin Grimes was injured. Then Evan Fournier kind of played himself out of the rotation, and when Cam got pushed to the bench because Quentin Grimes was taking the next step to be a starter, Cam's play just dropped significantly. And there's just one game.
I was just working on tomorrow night's game, and I was a little surprised by how many DNPs were on that box score from last night.
So this is said with very little insider information. There's hints of it, but from what we are guessing at this point is an agreement has been made above Thibodeau's head, whether it's with player, front office, agent, coach, that they're going to find him a new home. It just didn't work out here, and that's the best guess. I'm personally wondering how Evan Fournier was allowed to get a second chance and Cam Reddish wasn't. They actually could really use a playmaking stretch 3-4 in the backup unit right now, which has been putrid for a couple of weeks. They're winning since then. It's literally that inflection point of the Dallas game where he last played. They're 15-7, something like that since then. But I can't attribute all of that to they benched Cam and now they're good, So
and Evan Fournier too. I mean, he in all these years he played against the Hawks. When he was with Orlando, and I mean he always killed the Hawks. I'm surprised he's not playing. I mean, we don't. I don't see you guys play all the time like you do, but a guy like Fournier, I mean, he's always been pretty good. I thought, but it's coaches are funny that way. They decide what they want to do and who they want to play. And, they certainly know more than we do. That's for sure.
Well, the Fournier thing it wasn't as surprising, I'll say. He showed up this season a step slow. I have no idea what to attribute that to because he played international ball during his summer off. So I don't know if that specifically had something to do with it. But when the one thing that he was brought here to do is be a shooter and shoot 40% from the field. And he wasn't even doing that consistently. Right. And then the defense just, it tailed off significantly. And then you have a wing like Quentin Grimes coming and being their primary point of attack defender. I think you'll see him a lot on Trey and DeJounte tomorrow night. But I like him too. All of these guys, every time we play the Knicks, I always say, gee, these guys, and Quickly is always good against us too. I mean, that's that guy is really, I'm very impressed by him. Yeah. Well,
I say, coaches, they decide what they're going to do. And sometimes they get into a little groove of their own of what they want to do. And, they've been, Thibodeau's certainly been successful over his career, and it's hard to argue with.
It's hard to, and yet that won't stop people sometimes.
No, I won't. Of course it won't. No.
The results, at least of that, they're winning. I think we have reached a point of exploring some other options. The bench has been bad for a couple of weeks, which, this Robinson injury might cause them to get a little more creative, which might lead to the trade market. And that's actually a good segue because aside from the hotter takes out there of a blow it up trade that the Hawks apparently were supposed to make a couple of weeks ago, what are the fringe trades that they might be looking into? I know John Collins has been mentioned in talks, I think, for 3 years. Yeah, and he's still an Atlanta Hawk.
His name keeps getting mentioned all the time, and really, I don't think a lot of it comes out of Atlanta. I mean, I think it's just this perception that some of these national writers get, and some of them, I mean, they don't watch the Hawks play. I mean, they wouldn't know some of the Hawks players in a lineup, or if they were in the same elevator with them. You know what I mean? But they all come along with these assumptions, and they say things, and how all the national TV shows are. They all have to say something about everything. So until anything happens, I mean, I'm going to leave it into the hands of Landry Fields, the former Knick legend.
Knick legend, yeah.
Yes. And, he's in charge of things right now with us, and he's doing a great job. And, since he took over, look, we're 4-0 since he took over.
So that was the secret.
I mean, they're all working together, the whole front office thing. And they're like everybody else, they're taking calls every day, I'm sure. But one of the great things about for me is they don't tell me anything. So, I don't. I'll wait and see what happens, and I call the games for the players that we have on the team.
So, just looking at the past couple of games, are they settling on an 8-9 man rotation? I saw Johnson only played 6 minutes last night, but is that what they've been going with?
Nate McMillan talked about that because of the injuries, guys were getting a lot more minutes, and Jalen Johnson was one of those guys who's been very good. He's very active when he gets into the games, but it's a situation where with Bogey Bogdanovic back now, he's getting those minutes. He's the first off the bench. And guys like Aaron Holiday, their minutes have been cut way back. Justin Holiday has been cut way back. So Nate's thing is, you guys just have to be ready all the time. And when it's time for you to step in, you step in. Like Jalen Johnson last night only played a few minutes, but he hit a huge 3-point shot for the Hawks. So, he contributed. But it's basically settling in now, I think, to the 8-9 man rotation, which, most of the teams at this point of the season get into. And certainly the bench tightens up once the playoffs come around. So this is probably the rotations that we're going to see for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think I've hinted at it throughout this conversation that I'm not super confident in the Knicks' chances tomorrow night, and I'm going through some of the box scores lately of having a weapon like Bogey off the bench. And
the Hawks have had, as you know so well. I mean, the Hawks have had a lot of trouble with the Knicks in regular season games.
Yes.
I mean, the Knicks have always done really well against them, and Julius Randle's always had big games. I mean, it wasn't until that 5-game playoff series that the Hawks kind of figured him out a little bit. So you take that away, and they're always and there'll be a lot of Knicks jerseys in the audience too, like there are, I guess, everywhere the Knicks go. I mean, because we kind of are a melting pot city here in Atlanta. There aren't too many native Atlantans. There are more and more now than there were when I first got here, 40 years ago to Atlanta. But there's still, you'll still see the Knicks fans tomorrow night in pretty good force, and they're not afraid to make some noise either, as you know.
Yes, I'm well aware of our nature for being loud and rambunctious, especially on the road. Yeah, the Knicks fans are low-key like Cowboys fans. They're everywhere. They don't have the success or the reason to still be as loud and rambunctious, but it works similarly. So
I always like to see the fat guys come in with the Willis Reed jerseys on.
Yes. The Walt Clyde Frazier jerseys coming in. Maybe some Bernard Kings working their way in there
tomorrow night. Is he doing the game?
I don't know, because he doesn't travel as much as he used to. It's
he's from Atlanta.
Yes,
he's
I do know that.
Native.
Yeah,
so he likes to come here.
So maybe that is something he'll do.
He was an analyst with the Hawks TV.
That I didn't know.
In the 80s. And you know who he worked with in a lot of games?
Who?
John Sterling.
Oh, the voice of the Yankees.
John used to do our TV.
So he used to be the Braves. Yes, that's right. He used to be the Braves announcer, right?
He did the Braves and he did the Hawks. Yeah, he did. So I would do radio. He would do TV. So John's got a good connection, and so does Clyde Frazier.
Yeah, I'm a Mets fan.
He's still got relatives here in Atlanta, so he likes to see his sister and things like that when he comes in. So
gotcha.
I always look forward to seeing him.
I'm a Mets fan, so John Sterling, there's a bit of a rivalry because I prefer more Gary Cohen, but and Howie Rose, but I acknowledge the legend that is.
Andrew, you just have to accept the fact that John does the Yankees, and that's the way it goes.
Yes, that is John Sterling to a T. I'm curious tomorrow night if how much the rivalry will matter, because like this season, we're so far removed from that playoff series, yet it keeps coming up that like the Knicks are playing the Hawks. And do you think from Hawks fans, like they circle the Knicks on the calendar, at least the Hawks players, even do they circle the Knicks on the calendar?
Not so much. I think fans do to a certain extent. I don't think players really look beyond what their next game is. I mean, to tell you the truth, I think that they focus in so much on their preparation that they have to do. The games come so hot and heavy. I mean, we've had a lot of road games this month of January. And right after these two games this weekend, Hawks play the Knicks tomorrow night. And then Saturday night, they play Charlotte. And then it's off to Chicago and Oklahoma City next week. So, I mean, that's the way the games go. And the coaches and the players, and they're always looking at the next film. And so the rivalry thing, I don't really think comes into play for players as much as it does for fans, but fans get jacked up for it for sure.
Has it always been like that? Like, is this something that has changed as it's become more of a, not that it's a bad thing, but like an individualized sport? Like throughout your time, have you seen like the rivalries, the team versus team rivalries start to go away a little more?
I think in a certain way it has, only because of like AAU basketball and guys that have like the same agents, and the Adidas guys all hang out, and then the Nike guys all hang out, and everybody's friends. That's to me, that's the biggest change over the years. And guys like Walt Frazier and Dominique, who does our TV, Dominique cringes sometimes when he sees all these guys hugging and everything else before games. And, like we used to battle each other, that was what, so I think that's different than it was, because there are so many relationships now between agents, players, and shoe companies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest takeaways I had from when The Last Dance came out, that like Karl Malone and Michael Jordan were shaking hands behind the scenes, like while they were passing each other to go to the post-game press conference,
Right.
And in my perspective as a fan that just was watching NBC at the time, these guys hated each other. It was all blood on the.
They did. I mean, back in that day, they did. I mean, to go back to Dominique is pretty much my point of reference on a lot of these things. I mean, he and Karl Malone never spoke. I mean, they had the whole time they played, they never really spoke. And they just got, when we put Dominique's statue up in Atlanta, I don't know, 7-8 years ago now, Karl Malone came into town for that. And it was the first time that they really, and he surprised Dominique by coming in. And it was the first time they had really had a close, relationship. And now every time they go to all-star games and they have the Legends breakfast and the Legends dinner and everything, they're like the best buddies now. But when they played, it was not what it is now, as far as the players being buddies with players.
That's fair. And in the hindsight of post your playing days, I guess the rivalry is kind of calmed down. Well, one rivalry that, at least for me, still exists is New York Atlanta. I mentioned being a Mets fan and did not enjoy how the baseball season ended this year. But as far as basketball is concerned, this should be a good barometer for the toughness and the will of this Knicks team, being man down, coming in losers of 2 straight. As far as how you see it,
why aren't they winning at home? That's what
It's the weirdest thing, because they're not getting blown out at home. It's not like they're like last night against the Wizards. It just looked like a tired team, and this goes partially to Thibodeau not trusting the bench. It's also partially to him not having people on the bench to trust. And so as a result, he's going full Nick Nurse with it and playing a ton of minutes from his starters. And last night, while they played poorly, it also looked like a lot of tired legs, a step slow on a lot of possessions. And like this season, they've had so many thrillers go down to the wire.
Right. What about Derrick Rose? What's the
listen, again, in way better shape than I am here on this podcast, so I don't want to comment on like the nature of his physical fitness. He has Father Time has looked undefeated against him this season.
He's a pro, though. I bet when push comes to shove in a big game, like let's say if he's not traded or whatever, but if he's there around playoff time, I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a role. I mean, that's just me from knowing, watching Derrick Rose and seeing him play against the Hawks all these years. But
also Thibodeau would vouch for Rose in any chance that he could. So I will say this: when Jalen Brunson had that injury, and then then RJ Barrett had that injury, they brought Derrick Rose and Evan Fournier back into the rotation temporarily. Right. And when it was time for like Jalen Brunson came back to choose one, Tibbs originally chose Derrick Rose. And then the next game, it was reported that Derrick Rose was out with some knee soreness or some type of contusion, and Fournier went back into rotation. And we have some reporting that suggests that the front office was like, we're going to shelf Derrick Rose, your favorite player that's maybe ever played basketball ever, so that Evan Fournier.
See, those are all the things rotation. I don't get involved in any of that kind of,
Right. Yeah. I admittedly, it's not. I don't know. We have a kind of a creed here at Knicks Film School that there's so much that goes behind the scenes that we don't know. So we're trying to just go off of what we can prove. Right. And this leads to some pushback when people criticize the head coach.
Yeah, but see, you have to. I mean, you have to kind of let the basketball people do their thing, and you kind of, especially a job like I have, and the play-by-play guys have. You do the games, and if you start trying to figure all that other stuff out, it doesn't get you very far. So you're better off just to go ahead and call the games, who's playing, when they're playing, and let all the rest of that stuff get all sorted out.
Well, I'll say this: it might be surprising the Derrick Rose DNPs, the Fournier and the Cam DNPs, and for a while it was like, is this an admitted like L for the front office that these free agents that they brought in are not seeing time, and yet like they were winning. So it's tough. They've looked like a different basketball team since December 3rd. And this is going to be the first big test for them, playing an Atlanta team that's coming in playing really well, or at least going to Atlanta with an Atlanta team that's playing really well. As you mentioned, like DeJounte and Trey starting to figure it out, I think might be some bad news for the rest of the league. Because this is this like what was projected when the trade was made?
When the trade happened, I mean, this is what everybody imagined, the way they've played in the last 3 or 4 games, and they really have kind of figured it out together. And, and people say, well, how did it take 40 games? But, they had flashes of it early, but then the injuries changed a lot of the rotations. They weren't playing together as much on the floor. Like one would play and then the other would come in. And then like right now, it's basically they play together at the first part of the game, the first 6-7 minutes. And then Trey will go out. He'll come back in. DeJounte will go out. And then when it's crunch time at the end, the last 6-8 minutes of the game, like last night, they played together and they were really good together. So I think they're getting, the more healthy the team gets, the more opportunities they're going to have to be able to play together on the floor at the same time.
I think this will be a place where we wrap up. As far as expectations for this season were concerned, when you make a big trade like that for DeJounte, like what did you think coming in? Like, we
were all excited. I mean, I'm still pretty excited about what they're going to be able to do. I think when the season started, people, fans especially, were maybe had higher expectations than they looked at this, say, oh, we're bringing in another all-star, so we're going to win so many games. So, but it takes a while. The Eastern Conference too, by the way, as you know now, I think it's stronger than the West right now. I mean, from top to bottom. So it's going to be hard. I mean, you look at the standings. I mean, it's unbelievable how many teams are right within 3 or 4 or 5 games of each other, and it's all going to shake out in these last 40 games. So it's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Stressful, but yes, hopefully fun to watch. Yes. There's like from 6 through about 11 or 12 is. You can expect anything from. Yeah,
I mean, it surprised Toronto. I mean, you might think that they might kick it in too pretty soon, and if they do, and Bradley Beal's back now for Washington, so they could win some games. And I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see. And Chicago, I mean, we've been waiting for them all year, right, to play better than they have. So they may start to really play well too. So you start getting all these teams in there, it's going to be really tough to see. Who's going to get that number 6 spot? And even the 5 now, too, is, Cleveland's 16, 17. I guess they've lost 17. So, I mean, it's still within striking distance for a lot of teams.
Yeah. Toronto and Washington, the Knicks' most recent 2 losses at Madison.
Right. Well, there you go. See, those are 2 teams that could really start to come on in the last part of the season.
Yeah, I think that's what's led to while the Knicks haven't been able to come away with some victories, it's what's led to so many close, thrilling games against these Eastern Conference opponents. Right. They had a Bulls game go down to the wire, a Pacers game go down to the wire. Both Bucks games even went down to the wire. So,
right. Every Eastern Conference game is pretty good right now, and it's kind of fun to watch all these rivalries.
It's funny the two games against the Hawks that they've played, neither have been close. The Hawks did turn a 20-point deficit into like a 20-point win, but then the other one was a blowout after DeJounte got hurt.
Yeah,
so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Steve, you've been outstanding with your time. Thank you so much for joining me. What would you like to plug before you get out of here?
What's that?
What would you like to plug before you get out of here?
I don't have any books. I don't have any. I don't have any podcasts or anything. I just do the games.
Okay. You still enjoy it?
I love it. I look forward to every night. I mean, I've done tomorrow night's going to be 2,873 consecutive games.
Man, the Iron Man
season and playoffs.
Yeah,
without a miss. So I've never missed one. So Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Yeah. I'm curious. Do you have a number that you're like, I need to get to this number?
I wouldn't mind, Chick Hearn holds the record for the consecutive games, which is like 3,300.
Okay. So that's,
I think I have a shot at it. I feel like I'm in pretty good physical shape, and I walk 6 miles every day to try to, keep the ticker going. And I love it. And being around all these young guys, I mean, it's terrific. It makes me feel younger, and I just look forward to every night, just like it was my first night. So it's still fun, and I'll do it as long as they let me.
Well, you're clearly a real legend in this industry, and I thank you so much for giving a New Yorker some time, despite the rivalry. Steve, you're amazing. Thank you for coming on.
Andrew, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. Anytime you need me, just you know where to find me.
Will do.